listening to the Scoop Slam Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Scoop Slam Podcast. We are back. Special edition episode today. We got a State of the Union breaking down some of the biggest topics in wrestling. So it's going to be a little fun. WrestleMania is right on the heels as well. So we are going to get our predictions for that going up at the end of the show. But we got a special guest on the show today, Ibou at Backup Hangman on Twitter. Before we get too far into anything, let me go ahead and introduce the co-host of the Scoop Slam Podcast, the historian. It's Ryan.
Yo, Micah and Ibou. We're ready, willing, able, in the thick of WrestleMania season, ready to scoop it and slam it. I'm ready to get going.
And I'm excited too. And the aforementioned Ibou, our special guest today. You doing all right?
Yeah, I'm doing great. I'm having a nice, peaceful Sunday. You know, long work week. I'm free today, and I'm excited to get into it in this podcast. This is my first appearance on this show, and the rundown excites me. So honestly, I'm just ready to talk some ball, man. I think in the wrestling community, there's always a lot of there's always a lot of conversations that I think aren't worth having that take up a lot of airtime and airspace. And we just don't get enough ball talk these days. So I'm excited to just talk the game, talk pro wrestling, and, you know, even disagree a couple times if it comes. But I'm excited to be here, and I'm happy you guys have me.
Yep. It's going to be fun. We've got, like I said, some very interesting topics to break down to me too. But I will go ahead and start us off. Obviously, WrestleMania week is upon us. This weekend will be WrestleMania. But Friday night, before we get there, we're going to have the Hall of Fame. So I'd like to start there. And they started this, I believe this year is the first edition, where they have the Immortal Moments. And this year they're inducting Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Bret Hart from WrestleMania 13. Obviously, one of the greatest matches of all time. But Ibou, I got to ask, in the pantheon of WWE, what matches do you consider to be some first ballot Hall of Famers that should be here in the Immortal Moments?
Matches or moments or both?
Let's go both. I say matches for now, and then we can do moments after.
Okay, sure. So obviously they made the right call with Austin versus Bret Hart. This is a really, really important match historically in the company. You know, this is the match that really made Steve Austin and set him on the right path. He'd been a rising star in the promotion for a number of months at this point. Bret Hart was on the heels of a heel turn that would pretty much shape the rest of 1997 for the WWF. And so this is a huge match, a great match, arguably the best match in the history of the company. And obviously the double turn is legendary with the sharpshooter and the visuals and all that. So, you know, I don't got to plead the case for the match that's already being inducted. But if I had to look at any other ones, I mean, the ones that I would name to you are cliche, but they're cliches for a reason. So obviously, like the two key matches from WrestleMania 3 would have to be on there. You know, those matches being Ricky Steamboat and Randy Savage for the Intercontinental Championship, Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant. You know, both these matches, big time, major matches in the Pontiac Silverdome. One of them drew the money in the house, and the other one, it was pretty much the first work rate classic of the WWF from '85 onward. You know, so those matches have to get on there. Looking at some other ones, I kind of want to think away from Mania to see if there's any non-Mania ones that I would like that would jump out to me. And trying to think of which ones that would be full valid.
No WLC matches or
no, but
Alicia Fox match.
Definitely not. Those matches, one of those are good, but definitely not. I am. God, what would I put? You know what?
Yeah, we don't know if it's just gonna be strictly WrestleMania matches. They announced that.
Based on the branding, it didn't sound like it, and so I'm trying to think of what would be like a first ballot incredible WWE match, not at Mania, because the way the company books and does their stuff, they try to put their biggest stuff historically at WrestleMania, but.
Yeah. What about Davey Boy versus Brett at SummerSlam 92?
Yeah, that was the first big show in Europe, and for the Intercontinental Championship in the main event of that show, that probably would be one of them for sure. That definitely would be one of them for sure.
Maybe something a little more modern, like a Cena CM Punk at Money in the Bank 2011.
Oh, easy. Yeah, that's another one.
Well,
Cena,
no, hold up now, because I don't know. Can we mention Vince now? I don't know if we can run the video packages.
see, I guess you just edit him out that part and you just show the
Okay, there you
GTS. You show the GTS in Chicago.
go. Okay.
You can't. Speaking of editing, because of the editing and you know where we're at now, that would be tough because it's like there's a lot of big Brock matches that I would think of, but you can't really put Brock in anything now, so you can't really go with Brock. What about maybe something from maybe a historically significant Royal Rumble like the '92 Rumble? I think would be a big one. Ric Flair winning the WWF Championship. You could do that. Modern examples.
So you're gonna be inducting 30 guys that night? Jeez.
Could you imagine? Can you imagine every surviving member just on stage? You know what I mean?
Okay, so 3 people.
Yeah, right. And then Ric Flair is shilling what's the drink that they had on the Dynamite?
Woo Energy.
Yeah, right. Just him shilling Woo Energy on the stage. Oh my God.
Cross motion with Hogan's Great American Beer.
Right.
Oh God.
Jesus Lord.
You can get an upper and a downer all in one, man. Going away from matches, are there any moments that you guys would say you think, like, obviously you mentioned WrestleMania 3 Hogan Andre, but are there any moments in WWE history you would add? Not necessarily a match.
Yeah. Oh, there's a ton, man. There's a ton from throughout history, from even as recently as a couple of years ago. I mean, obviously there's cliches. Austin 316, King of the Ring 1996. That's a huge one, of course, right? But then you could look at some like the big legendary angles on some of those Attitude Era Raws that get played to death on the video packages. But like maybe one of the key ones that Austin had with I mean again Vince McMahon. That's taboo now. So it's like you probably can't do him stunnering Vince at the Garden in 1997, which was the first stunner on Vince where he gets like taken away in handcuffs. So that's you probably lean away from that. But if you want to do the beer bath where Austin comes in, and that you could do that. You could do him on the Zamboni. Other notable moments. I mean, you could do anything with Randy Savage and Miss Elizabeth, like the wedding. You could maybe put that in there. I think that's a big one. Other moments. I mean, Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks just main eventing WrestleMania. That's like the stare down at the beginning, the crying, the 2 Black women headlining WrestleMania. That's a big one. Looking elsewhere, Becky Lynch, the visual of her with the bloody nose and in the SmackDown shirt in the crowd, like that's a big thing that helped get her over. You could do that. Or if you want to do something else with Becky, you could do her just turning heel at SummerSlam 2018. What other stuff?
You do the Hogan Rock stare down from like WrestleMania 18.
You could do that. It's a low key one that's like really important when you think about it. The Thunderdome SmackDown where Roman Reigns is sitting there talking to Adam Pearce and the camera pans out and Paul Heyman's next to him. And it's revealed that Paul Heyman is back and he's now working for Roman Reigns. Because I mean, that is the signifier of where everything went after that. And I mean, Tribal Chief Roman defines a lot of the last couple of years of WWE. So those are some ones that like immediately jump to mind. And there's a million of them because they pride themselves as being the Moments company. So there's a bunch of them. Yeah, Eddie Guerrero winning the WWE Championship at No Way Out 2004 against Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, that's a good non-Mania one too. I was going to throw in the pipe bomb as well. Now that Punk is back, that's obviously got to be a first ballot, moment.
And it probably will be inducted.
Yeah. Are there any, Ryan, that you potentially wrote down or thought that maybe we haven't mentioned?
No, I think we hit them all. It's just so hard to do a lot of Austin's moments because, I mean, a lot of Austin's big moments are tied to Vince McMahon.
Yeah. Well, and I will say, I started watching, they had that documentary about the background of WrestleMania 9, and it was actually, there's obviously clips of Vince in there because it's impossible to do backstage stuff then without Vince because he was such a pivotal, person. But it was really interesting, and I mean, it sucks, but it kind of feels the same way like when you go watch a Chris Benoit match. It's like, the guy, what he did, but you can't deny, at the same time, how huge he was for the WWE. But that's not me coming to his defense either.
Right. Of course.
I'm glad you put that caveat in.
When you tell the story of wrestling, it's hard not to come off like you're glorifying people that are obviously like bad people. But the reality of the situation is just wrestling itself, its history, and the things that have taken place in the business. It's straight up just shaped by a lot of people that are just
A lot of bad people. Yeah, a lot of bad
right,
people.
right, yeah. And so
We gotta look at their on-screen persona. On screen. As long as they don't,
yeah,
Chris Benoit treatment. I mean, I can understand that, but
right, exactly.
Well, to move to a more current topic, before we get into obviously all the big WrestleMania topics coming up, the future of the Wyatt Six is kind of something that I wanted to gauge what you thought was the plan, or maybe what would be the plan going forward, because obviously they had this huge debut last year, and it got tons of engagement online, and it was kind of a divisive thing. A lot of people like myself, I get lost in it, but at the same time it is a little too hokey for me. But I just wanted to see what you thought maybe they were planning for them going forward.
Yeah, it's a tough one because I was somebody that was a bit trepidatious going into the Wyatt Six. I saw the names that were in the reports, and I was like, man, these guys aren't big time stars. How's that going to work? I also had hangups on the fact that I'm not a big fan of the esoteric, spooky wrestling gimmicks. And so I was like, man, how are they going to portray this on the air? Are they going to do magic? Are they going to do mystical stuff? Are they going to be treated like real people? And I was like very pleased to see that, generally speaking, on the show, they made it very clear. These are real people. They don't have powers. There are people behind the masks. They wear these masks. They showed us why. They told us why each individual person did what they did and why they believed in the message and the cause. And it was rooted in a real thing, which is just mourning the loss of Bray Wyatt and processing that the way that they're doing through the gimmick. And so I say all that to say that I was pretty pleased with the general direction and presentation of the Wyatt Six. And beyond all of that, I was pretty impressed with how over the guys were. And this one's kind of a shame to see it kind of fizzling the way it's fizzled, because they never stopped being over. They were always over. They came out and they were over, and they had matches that got over with the live crowds, and Eric Rowan was a guy that had a great hot tag. So by the end of things, I became pretty pro Wyatt Six, and it's a shame that they haven't been around lately. I was of the belief, Micah, that they were going to do a program with the Judgment Day, and I was pretty firm on the fact that that was the Mania direction. And I think WWE had that direction as well, because it was no coincidence that Alexa Bliss was eliminated by Liv Morgan. And the same thing happened at the Chamber. And I believe that was the direction. And for whatever reason, something happened to where they just opted not to do that direction anymore. I think they will circle back and go back to that direction going into after Mania.
But Ibou, let me cut you off here. Do you think it's creatively something going on, or do you think somebody got hurt? Because I was hearing that Bo Dallas is hurt behind the scenes.
So here's the thing. There was validity to this. He was injured, and that was why they were off TV for a bit. He's not injured anymore. And here's the thing. I'm of the belief that internally they felt, okay, if Bo's hurt, we'll just do the ladies versus the ladies. Because I think initially it was going to be a big group match, both full stables, men and women. And I think at some point they decided, all right, we'll just do Nikki and Lexi versus Liv and Raquel. And here's the thing. The Wyatts are on SmackDown, but Liv and Raquel are Raw girls, but they won the tag belts, and the tag belts are dual branded belts. And again, I believe that they did that to then move Liv Morgan away from pursuing the world championship and then into doing a program with the Wyatts. Because again, early at the start of the year, Liv Morgan was pursuing the women's championship that she just lost. And she was in the Rumble and she was in the Chamber. And the tag division was the vehicle to bridge her away from that and into the Wyatt stuff. And obviously things didn't come out the way that they were supposed to. And now she's going to be facing the Bayley and Lyra. And I think anybody watching the show would be able to denote that this was obviously not the original directions for any of the people involved. Any of them. Bayley was going to work Roxanne, and it was very clear. And again, Lyra, she was not in the Bayley direction at all. She was kind of just floating and defending her championship. And if you ask me, waiting for Becky Lynch to resurface, and that's not happening for Mania. So they decided to just throw all these spare parts together for a match that I think will be very good. But this was obviously not the original plan direction.
Yeah, I got the same feeling coming, and I believe me and Ryan were live for Elimination Chamber, and I think I said the same thing then. Like you said, Bayley, Roxanne, Liv, Alexa, like it all made sense. And I thought Bo Dallas had really kind of introduced himself, because I remember not necessarily being somebody that was captivated by the Bo Leave run, but man, his promos, like, they were really, Bray-esque. And I thought that there were going to be bigger things for them, and that hasn't happened. So, I don't know, maybe we see... Go ahead, Ryan.
I was going to say, I'm still confused as to why the Final Testament beat the Wyatt Six, and then that just kind of fizzled out. If they knew they were going to release half the Final Testament, why didn't they just let the Wyatt Six beat the Final Testament on that blow-off match? Y'all remember that happened, right? Am I imagining things?
I do. I mean, I remember it vaguely.
they just the Final Testament beat them in a match, and everyone assumed, okay, we're gonna get a rematch where it's a big blow off, probably some gimmick match, and the Wyatts get their win back. And instead of doing that, they just abruptly send the Wyatts to SmackDown, to which they've never appeared on SmackDown. And then Final Testament get released, and then that's the end of that. So they basically, like, the storyline just ended midway.
It's
very strange.
Yes, very questionable, and I think that kind of ties into the next thing I wanted to talk about. And for this one, I'd like to get both of you guys grades, but Triple H's booking as a whole. Now, obviously, the set point of where his booking starts is kind of disputed, because, like, some people would say 39, but he had some control before that because of, we saw SummerSlam. Bayley comes back with Io and Dakota. So I think those were Triple H hires. But regardless of the start, we've had some great moments. Obviously, Cody finishing his story last year is one of the greatest moments in WWE history. CM Punk's return. But for every great moment, we've also got some negative things, like Drew McIntyre's kind of stop and start pushes. He really reinvented himself in 2024, and no disrespect to Damian Priest, but I felt like Drew was due something a little bit bigger for WrestleMania 41, and LA Knight's mid-card title run. That also is kind of, what could have been, because when he was going for that Money in the Bank, which Priest ended up winning, LA Knight was massively over, and now he's definitely taken a few notches down. So what overall Triple H's booking of WWE would you give a grade? Ryan, I'll open the floor to you first.
Yeah, I'm giving it a solid B+. I feel like his long-term booking has been really good since he's taken over. We've gotten less rematches on the weekly shows, which, Mike, I know you fell out for a little while, but Ibou, you can attest to this. There was a lot of rematches on Raw and SmackDown when Vince was in charge towards them later years.
Well, not only were there a lot of rematches, there was often not any logic attached to why they were wrestling again.
Yeah. And I just feel like he makes a lot of the matches, the weekly matches, a lot of them have purpose now, which, like you just said, Ibou. And then blending together the storylines, the whole Bloodline storyline, that's a top 3 storylines ever told in WWE history. And, Triple H has to take at least some credit for that. So, of course, there's been a lot of drawbacks with the tag team. Tag team wrestling has been very poor since he's taken over, that's kind of surprising, because he had tag team wrestling. He was the best tag team division in all of wrestling was when NXT, when Triple H had to book the NXT. And that's kind of surprised me. I don't know if it has anything to do with them splitting up titles again, but yeah, that's definitely
it's
something.
funny.
Go ahead.
You know what's funny about that? I actually think the tag division for his first year and a half was great. I thought that the fall off came shortly after the belts were split.
Yeah,
And
they just don't have enough tag teams, and the ones that they do, they don't feature all the time. It's a lot of stop and start pushes.
there was a stretch where the tag belts to me felt like a main event championship in WWE. When the Usos in the Bloodline were the double champions, they were treated like like a main event act. They were main eventing TVs every time that they wrestled. And they're having a bunch of TV title defenses in late 2022. And they faced guys like the Brawling Brutes, and they had a they had a TV main event where they faced Drew McIntyre and Sheamus. Really good match. Like they were doing good stuff. The tag belts main evented the night of WrestleMania, and it didn't feel like, oh my god, what the hell, these belts. No, it felt like, oh yes, that warrants the Mania main event. And Kevin Owens and Sami continued right where they picked the baton up from the Usos. And Owens and Zayn, I thought, were an excellent tag team. And I think their 2023 run was actually kind of underrated. They were main eventing TVs up and down the shows throughout the year. And again, felt like a main event belt. In fact, because Roman Reigns was the champion, even though Seth Rollins was holding the World Heavyweight Championship and Gunther was doing good stuff, Owens and Zayn and their tag belts felt like the top belt on Raw, because that opened the show, their segments and angles, and it closed the show. So, and then it continued even more because Judgment Day, it was their whole bit that they ran Monday Night Raw, and when they won the belts off of Owens and Zayn, things didn't really drop off there either. I thought once R-Truth got involved with Judgment Day, things got shaky, and I thought when they split the belts, to your point, the divisions just weren't strong, and not only were they not strong on both sides, the championships just started. That's when they started to feel like mid-card belts. They never made the pay-per-views, and beyond not making the pay-per-views, now it's to a point where when people win the tag belts, it just kind of feels like another ho-hum mid-card title switch rather than a big time event. And for me overall, I would say with Triple H's booking, it's really it's a hard thing to kind of summarize, because I feel like there's stretches where the creative in the company was actively really productive and really strong, and other stretches where it wasn't so strong. I would say broadly speaking, right? He's absolutely his creative direction has been a net positive to WWE. Undeniably. The show before him and his team took over was far worse. He steadied the ship. He introduced a level of logic that the show had not had for a long time. The show just made more sense. It had direction. It had vision. And
more long-term storytelling, too.
Right. And a lot of guys got over in this period. I will say, there has been a noticeable creative drop-off, in my opinion, over the last, I want to say, generally speaking, couple months. And what I mean by that is what you would not get a year ago would be a story getting started on TV and just being outright dropped. And in this Mania season alone, there's been a lot of dropped stories. And that kind of thing was not happening before, because the writing was way too tight for that type of thing to happen. It felt like a tightened ship. And it feels like right now the screws are loosening on a lot of things. And maybe that's just, with the additions of Netflix and, all these other commitments, an extra hour of SmackDown, I've noticed it's affecting the show in terms of just how tight everything is. So we'll see how that evolves over time, but it's just something I've taken note of. Again, when it comes to dropped storylines, when it comes to just maybe a slight lack of creativity of what they're doing on the shows with maybe the formatting of SmackDown with the Bloodline and things like that. I think overall, what I would grade Triple H's overall booking of WWE, I would say C+ to a B-. That would be kind of where I land. So I would it's more than a passing grade, but I think there's still some things to be desired when it comes to various aspects of the card.
Well, to kind of go off what you were saying about the recent booking, me and Ryan talked about on the podcast the past couple weeks, the lack of anything happening when we're 3, 4, 5 weeks out from Mania was just insane to me. You have this moment in WWE history with Cena turning, and I mean that junk was front page ESPN News the next day, and Cena's not on the show for another 3 weeks. Like, we titled one of the episodes Starving because we were, I mean, just having to come up with something to talk about on those review shows. And that's ridiculous. This is supposed to be the best time of the year for us as wrestling fans. And to just kind of leave us twisting in the wind right here before Mania really felt discouraging. And I think it's hurt a lot of people's interest going into WrestleMania 41.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was a bit of incohesiveness to a lot of the Cody Cena stuff for a while. And I think that they're starting to tie some of it a little together. Some of it through Cody Rhodes' just really, really strong promo work. And I thought his promo on this most recent SmackDown, for example, kind of took a lot of the floating ideas that have been out there for the story and kind of weaved it into something that's like cohesive and centralized in terms of like what this whole conflict is about. But yeah, the Cena stuff is weird because it felt like each week the writing team had a different idea of what John Cena as a heel even is, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean? Like, it felt like each week it was a different version of heel Cena, and it felt like they were tinkering with that until they landed on like something that they liked. And I'm still not sure right now. They know for sure what they want him to be, which is why I really hope, not to jump ahead, but I really hope that John doesn't just lose at Mania and turn babyface after the match. Because I feel like this whole thing has so much potential and so much legs. And I think having the room to play with and continue to figure out what they want this to be is important. Because, again, you need that time sometimes to really develop the idea. And so I'd like them to do that with John.
But they cooled this off so much, Ibou. Like, it was
Of
so
course,
hot.
of course, dude. When the angle happened, it was like talked about. People were comparing it to the NWO turn, and they were talking about the angle. They were talking about the angle like, oh my god, this is like one of the greatest angles they've ever done. And to me, there was so much excitement and buzz out of that. And it's like to see like them do 3 straight weeks of just them talking at each other. And like one of the weeks, John is just blaming the fans, and it didn't make a lot of sense. And it's like they didn't do any crazy physical angles or anything creative with it. It does feel like, oh my god, you're really squandering this. And it's a shame because compare this to last year when The Rock was the final boss, right? That was money. Every time he came on TV, it was money. And he was fleshing out his character on social media. And they did the angle in the rain where he bloodied up Cody Rhodes. They did the other angle where he's like whipping him and stuff. Like, everything The Rock did was very, very memorable. It was visceral. It was a big experience. And for John Cena's 3 segments to just be him standing in front of Cody Rhodes and talking. And the first 2, it's just him cutting you people promos. And the second of which was like an actively dull restating of what he said the week before. I was like, man, what are you doing? Like, you guys are wasting his availability here. Like, let's really get to it. Let's do some like epic and memorable shit. So like, I don't disagree with you guys in that standpoint.
Yeah, and that kind of ties into my next question as well. Like you said, I'm really hoping Cena does win at Mania because then what? But going into this last year, we know it's his last year in wrestling. So, Ibou, do you have any guess to who you think his last opponent will be, or maybe selfishly somebody you hope is his last opponent?
That's a tough one. I think, man, this is his final opponent. Because you can go in a couple different directions here. You can say, give the young guy the rub, have a young guy beat John Cena. You could do that, you know? And in that case, I'd imagine he's retiring as a babyface. And so if he is, you would think maybe a heel should beat John Cena. And so the question is, okay, if let's say that's the direction you're going, who's the young hot heel that should get the rub from beating John? And there's a couple ideas I could go with. You can maybe look at a Braun Breaker if you want to have him be a full-on heel at that point. You could look at Jacob Fatu if he can even stay heel at that point because the crowd loves him there. They're cheering him. But those would be like 2 big ones to me off the top of my head.
I would like to interject. I know a young heel that a lot of people maybe don't like online, but about 2 years ago around this time, John Cena absolutely cut his nuts off. I mean, are we ever going to see Austin Theory get his win back? I'm not asking for that to be his last opponent, but I mean, John Cena absolutely brought the shovel out for Austin Theory, and he has never been the same.
Well, Theory beat Cena at that Mania. Didn't feel like it, but he did beat him.
I honestly, for some reason, thought Cena won, and that makes no sense. But it didn't. It didn't feel like he beat John Cena at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think. I mean, we'll see, but like, it would be kind of interesting if like Theory like was pissed about this and showed up and was like he wanted to get his win back on that. Do I think they revisit that matchup? They obviously might. Do I think it'll be anywhere near as John Cena's last match? Absolutely, positively not in any way, shape, or form.
No, and it shouldn't be. I was just saying a young heel who needs to maybe have some interaction with Cena to maybe get some of his oomph back. I think Theory at least needs something, man.
No, I hear you. So
I can see maybe a Logan Paul or a Dirty Dom.
Oh my
See that.
goodness.
Hey, now if you give Logan Paul that last win over Cena, that would be. Come on now.
That would be insane.
Money. That would be money.
I feel like Logan Paul. Honestly, actually, I don't know if that's his last match, but I could see him beating John Cena towards the end of his deal here.
Yeah, because Cena's last match is in December, so if Logan Paul can beat Cena in December, he go on to the Royal Rumble, wins that. We could be seeing I'm just saying though, you turn into the next main event heel right there.
I would say, you know what's another thing you could do? You could also have, instead of going in the face heel direction, you could just do like a matchup where it's just like John versus like a lifelong rival of his settling, like having one last match. And in that case, because here's the thing. You could do CM Punk as his last match. But I also would like to see that earlier too. Like, I think there's a lot of money in John Cena beating Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania. And at some point, maybe at Money in the Bank this year, just to make it poetic justice and have it tie in. You could do Punk versus Cena, heel Cena. And this time, the idea is like Punk was always right about John, and he's chasing the belt. And John beats him this time. You could do that. So it's like, that's what I would like them to do. But if you do that, then it's like, is there room to then do Punk and Cena again at the end of the year? I mean, maybe there is. But I do think there's upside in also just kind of having like a really cool, graceful match where it's just John versus a lifelong rival. So, I mean, again, there's so many options there. Braun Breaker, Jacob, Punk.
I can see Cody being his last match.
You could do Cody. You could do Cody again. You could definitely do Cody again. So there's a couple options there on the table.
I do feel like there's one glaring omission, and I am not at all clamoring for this because I love the guy. I respect like what he's done, and he is a legend, first ballot Hall of Famer. But please, God, I do not want Randy Orton to be John Cena's last match, man.
No.
There are too many stinkers in that rivalry for me to want to see that again.
Yeah, I'm somebody that thought that I watched that whole thing in real time, and it's always so funny for me when I see younger fans just kind of being like, "Oh man, the legendary Randy Orton Cena thing," and I'm like, I thought this sucked, and I was not having fun in real time. I remember when they ran it back in 2009 and they're doing their program, I was like on the website just being like, "Man, Raw stinks and SmackDown is so much better." Like I was that guy. I'm like, man, I prefer watching CM Punk and Jeff Hardy and John Morrison and Ziggler and Rey Mysterio and Chris Jericho. Like I was that guy. I was not a fan of most of the Cena Randy matches. A couple of them are good, but most of them I was not a fan of.
No, but Ibou, do you remember when they got booed out the building at that Royal Rumble match they had in 2014?
Yeah, it was not a thing people
didn't enjoy that at the time, but they put on their nostalgia glasses for those matches.
People were over Randy versus John at that point.
Yeah.
I'll say this. To me, I will say this. People were fantasy booking getting this match one last time. And I remember seeing it and being like, I don't really want to watch this again. But I will. I'll say this. I will say this. Randy Orton is very over now, and there was a fun to watching Randy Orton just do his thing and get the crowd cheering him. Like for years, he had the reputation of being like boring Randy headlock guy. He's not really that guy anymore. Now he just kind of sticks to like the stuff he's good at, the stuff that gets over, and his matches aren't like overly long. And so that does bode well for a Cena match if John is going to stay heel. So if John is going to be the evil corporate champion and Randy Orton faces him at Backlash in St. Louis, for example, right? That'll be a super hot match, to be honest. So I'm not what I'm saying basically is I'm no longer opposed to seeing it. With that said, do I think that's the right match for John's final match? No, I do not think that. Yeah. And to be honest with you, it's a bit of a shame that Adam Copeland is not in WWE anymore, because I actually think Cope and Cena running it back one last time would be kind of cute, but not in the cards, unfortunately.
Well, I think we're gonna get to the main man Cope a little later.
Yeah, I don't know if you want current day Cope against Cena. I don't
know. But yeah, I could see it, like you said, like for Randy, that's a pivotal moment kind of in both of their careers, and it pops the casual fans who pop in. I got a guy I work with, and he's a big Cena fan. He's kind of locked back in to see all this, and he was like, yeah, man, I want to see Randy and Cena one last time. And I was like, yeah. And then in the back of my head, I'm thinking, no. But, I didn't have the heart to tell him that I thought that stunk. But moving on, obviously WrestleMania 41 this weekend, said it a million times. But I'll open the floor up for this. Who do you think will be the breakout star of WrestleMania this year, and maybe going into the rest of 2025? Ryan, I'll let you take the floor first.
Yeah, I think Dirty Dom is destined for great things. I can see a Money in the Bank victory right after Mania. I can see him holding the title coming out of Mania. I mean, Dirty Dom, yeah, he broke out a couple years ago, but he really hasn't had that main title run by himself. And I can see that happening in 2020. He's already got everything. He's got the crowd booing every segment he's in. He's at the Rhea-verse. So I think he's destined for some big things in 2025.
The Rhea-verse. That's a great way to identify that.
It's been a real thing.
Well, I do agree with that. Ibou, I know you kind of had a space earlier talking about Dom. So how do you feel maybe about Dom and your pick for breakout star?
Well, I think the breakout star from this year's main is going to be someone from that match, but not Dominic. I think it's going to be Braun Breaker. Braun Breaker is obviously like arrived, so to speak. He's already a mid-card title holder, but I think he's really going to turn heads. Braun Breaker is already a tremendous and explosive athlete, right? But in multi-man matches where he just gets to wreck shop and you don't have to worry about him selling or like the match slowing down, I think he's going to like wow everybody. I think he's going to be one of the big highlights of the two nights. He's just going to spear everyone in sight and kill everybody and come out smelling like roses from that. So even if he drops his championship in this match, which I actually think he is going to, I think he's going to lose up and he'll be a guy primed and ready to win a world title this year. So I'm picking Braun Breaker. He's going to probably win the World Heavyweight Championship this year. That's my big prediction. And I think he's going to beat Jey Uso for the belt. And I think when we look back at the year, you're going to look at his performance at WrestleMania as like a big pivotal moment for him.
Ryan, you sounded like you had a rebuttal there.
Yeah. No, I can see it, but yeah, I mean, no problems here. I get, Braun Breaker, he's money, he's athletic. I can see him being world champion, but I mean, we already booking the end of Jey Uso's reign already. What's going on?
Yeah, I'm I'm looking at like who could fill that J run in general, and I'm not really sure, but to me, Braun ending it makes sense because
he took the IC title from him.
Yeah,
the world title now.
Yes, I think I don't know who how do I word this? I don't know. I can't name you a ton of guys that Jay has chemistry with these days, to be honest with you, in singles match. I'm not sure. I don't know. But I know Braun and him do. They had a segment on a Raw before their IC match, the first one. No one talks about it, but it was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun watching them both talk shit to each other, and I think them running that program back for the World Heavyweight Championship would be kind of neat, to be honest with you. So I'm looking forward to seeing them kind of like mix it up again.
I can see that going into SummerSlam, and
Yeah, I feel like that's the SummerSlam match if you ask me.
And it also kind of depends on how this run works for Jay. He's a very divisive person online. You know, a lot of the real Graps lovers really hate Jay. But then the casual fan who, you know, they go buy their Yeet shirt, which ain't something I would wear out in public, but, you know, people love to wave their arms up and down. So I don't know. I've come around to the idea that I do think Jay was the right Royal Rumble winner. But his reign has yet to be seen. So Braun beating that, I could see that. I also don't think it's impossible for Gunther to come back and take that. But for Braun, and this kind of ties into my next question, because Heyman has been a big, he's pulled this way, he's pulled that way. He's going to be in the corner of CM Punk for WrestleMania 41, but we saw on Raw that now, and it was kind of stupid, but Seth now is owed a favor by Heyman because he didn't, curb stomp him into oblivion. But is there any way that we see Heyman turn on both Punk and Roman in one night and go with Seth? Or do you think they pivot and he goes with Braun? Because Braun and Paul could be, you're just printing dollar bills at that point. That's basically Brock Lesnar 2.0 with Paul Heyman back in 2002. That guy can have an all-time run. Or I could see Seth going with him, and I wouldn't hate that either because I don't think I would love it as much as Punk having Heyman behind him, but I really just do not love Seth Rollins' promos in 2025.
You know what's the tough thing about Seth Rollins? There's two versions of his promos. And when he does the freaking shtick, I have no time for it these days. It feels like he's just wasting the whole names this. I am a visionary. I am a revolution. I am Seth freaking Rollins. It's a tired shtick to me personally, right? Now, with that said, when he goes into the mode of being just a truth teller, I enjoy his promo. And I think this year, his character, you know what it is? I've enjoyed his promos lately because he's a well-written character these days. Because, in a landscape where wrestling characters can be inconsistent, he's kind of stayed true to his values. He's the guy that never wanted to side with the bloodline. He didn't want to help them at War Games because he's the one guy that remembered the person Roman Reigns was. And so it made no sense to him. And I was like, man, that's a good point. And I've enjoyed his writing and his character's logic. And that's allowed me to enjoy his Seth Rollins promos more than I would normally. But with that said, I don't really need to see him as a Paul Heyman guy. And I'm not really clamoring for it or asking for it. I just don't think it would really, I don't think he needs it. I don't think it really changes anything. Seth Rollins is a made guy. He's a made guy. And he's going to be a staple and a main event top guy for the remainder of his WWE run. So why would you use Paul Heyman's, remaining years dealing with that? To me, I think it'd be more fruitful and productive if you put him with Braun Breaker. So that's something that I would prefer and I would like to see. But obviously, they're setting up for something with Paul Heyman. Clearly, he has to make a choice at WrestleMania. The whole storyline at this point is about him and his allegiances and services. So this whole match is going to be built around whose side is Paul Heyman really on, and they implemented Seth Rollins into that the way that they did on Monday. And so now the big intrigue going into the match is, all right, who's Paul going to side with? And my truthful answer is hopefully none of you guys. But hopefully none of you guys. But obviously he's going to pick a side, and some of the fans have predicted it being Seth Rollins as the big plot twist, but I think they played around with that idea by doing the whole thing of Seth Rollins now being owed a favor.
Yeah, I think, and we talked about this last week, on the last episode of the pod, where it just kind of feels like, it's CM Punk and Roman Reigns, and Seth Rollins. Like, I just feel like in a one-on-one match, Punk and Roman for, custody of Paul Heyman, that tired shtick. But that's a WrestleMania match with like stakes, and it would actually be a singles match in this WrestleMania 2000-esque multi-man card that we have. And so I don't feel like Seth was needed here, but at the same time, if they get Heyman to turn on everybody and be the conniving, backstabbing person that he has been in the past, to then go with Braun, I think that's probably the best case scenario, because like you said, none of these guys really need him anymore.
Yeah, I totally agree. In fact, I think Roman Reigns, it'd be interesting to see him just approach all of this differently at this point, because we've seen like the tribal chief stick for a number of years now. And I think I'd really just like to see Roman creatively challenge himself again. And I don't know if that's in the cards, but I'd like to see it. Punk doesn't need Heyman. Like, you could play around with it, and you could have him do stuff with Paul Heyman on TV, but he doesn't need it. And then with Seth Rollins, like I said, like, he's a made guy. So I'd really like to see what Braun Breaker and Paul Heyman would do as an example. So that's just like where I'm leaning, where my head's at with this whole thing.
I gotcha. So, now obviously I know that if you have never listened to the podcast before and this is your first time introduced to it, Ryan, typically a little WWE leaning. Ibou, I think you are a little more AEW leaning, but that doesn't mean that you have to disparage WWE or anything. But the hot topic here, and I'm really interested to see what you guys think about the character of Toni Storm over the past couple months. Obviously, has a lot of fanfare online. The people in the building seem to like it. But at the same time, she gets a lot of hate. I think at times it's a little hokey. Ibou, what are your thoughts on the character of Toni Storm, and is this the best work of her career? Would you say this is one of the greatest gimmicks in AEW's history?
I'll say this. I was not a fan of Timeless Toni Storm when it started. A lot of people were into it because it was funny and it was quirky. But I thought it was just a little too cute for my liking. And it wasn't that amusing to me personally. And I just didn't care for it. I just didn't find it. I just wasn't that amused by the gimmick. My other big hang-up was that she did not know how to do the gimmick while having good matches at first. So the early Timeless Toni pay-per-view matches were like pretty bad in my opinion. So frankly, I had no time for it, truthfully. In the spring of last year, she had a match with Azumi on Collision. Azumi is a wrestler on Stardom, and it's like something locked into place for her. Something snapped into place. And from that point onward, she was able to put it together and have good in-ring performances. The long-term storyline with Mariah May was one that was meant to make Mariah and position her as like a main event star in the division. And I would say that it helped and it didn't help, because Mariah was over in the context of Toni, but outside of Toni Storm and her and anything dealing with her, it didn't really feel like it had much juice, just Mariah in general and her pay-per-view title defenses. But what I will say about the storyline is it was a very cohesive one, and the last match that she had with Toni on pay-per-view at Revolution was phenomenal, like genuinely incredible, that match. So I can't praise that match enough. The Hollywood ending that they had, and really by the end of it, watching that match, watching how Toni carries herself, watching how over she's become, I've kind of had this like epiphany, and like I find myself just looking up, going like, man, Toni, this is like her company right now, and it's like one of those things where it's like whether it's like your thing or not, it's pretty undeniable. So that's where I'm at with Toni. Is like, is the Timeless thing like my shit? Maybe not necessarily, but it works, and it's really respectable just how she commits to the gimmick and how dedicated she is in just being that character. So much so that like she's able to blur lines and like live the gimmick in a way that's very old school for pro wrestling, and I respect that, and I respect how over she's become. And I respect what she's been able to put together for herself. So this absolutely is the run of her career. She's clearly fulfilled by playing this gimmick, and she's having some great matches along the way. Her last match against Megan Bain was really strong. So Toni Storm is doing a great job, and she gets the Ibou cosign, the Ibou support, the thumbs up.
Yeah, but Ibou, where did the switch flip where she became a silent film star into, I don't know, adult film star? When did that happen? Why did that?
She was like losing her mind. She was in the Outcast, I believe it was the name of the group, with Saraya and Ruby Soho, and she lost her mind after she lost her championship, and then she's doing this thing where like it was like a semi slow transition. She was having those promos, the backstage interviews where she was like doing the accent, the transatlantic accent that she was doing. They're like 1920s film star accent, and she was just kind of, it was like a quirky thing at first, and it was like a slow descent into madness, and then it kind of came to a head at All In at Wembley in the first All In 2023, and it went like completely over the top after that. So it was, the transition process did happen. Like if you watch like the summer 2023 AEW stuff, it was beginning to kind of transition, and then she was full timeless by like the fall.
And she is over in the arenas and online, so you can't take that away from her. But
Yes,
me and Micah just aren't big fans of the female Joel Gertner shtick she does, or the female Val Venus type. I'm just, does she need to lean into that? I don't know.
Well, I mean, I don't. Does she need to? What I would say about that is this: it's one of those things where it's like, it works for her. Like I'm listening to her on commentary, for example, right? And it's like, I could say a lot about like, does she need to do this? Does she need to do that? But it's like, what I would say is that it's well performed. Like she's so quick witted, and like it's very unique to how she approaches it. Because usually when women do sexuality in wrestling, it's usually in a very specific way. It's just, I'm hot, like get into it. You know what I mean? And like, she doesn't do it in that way. She does it in this kind of like weird, awkward, like intentionally awkward, like intentionally weird way. And I kind of dig how subversive that is, if that makes any sense. Like, she'll make a sex reference, and it's not for you to like be turned on by it. She says it in this kind of like passing, like comedic, like weird, off-putting way. And if nothing else, it's very unique and something I've never really seen a female wrestler do. And so on that alone, like I think I like respect it. Is kind of the way I would say, even though it's like obviously not like something that I need a wrestler to do. So that's kind of my perspective on it.
I get you.
I see your point. I don't know. To me, I do agree that her matches were the absolute like, and it didn't make sense. They were awful because before her matches were really good to me. And then I remember her and Serena Deeb, and I was like, man, I think this match will be really good because Serena was usually pretty solid around that time in ring. And I just remember being like, man, this match was such a letdown. I think that the Revolution match, I'm a little bit more into the hardcore stuff than Ryan is, but at the same time, I think we get a little too far with the taped glass fists, and it's overly choreographed to me. They both managed to put a bucket under there with glass shards and tape their fists up at the same time. I just thought that was a little too much. But I don't hate blood in women's wrestling necessarily. But I also feel like at times I almost kind of think that her humor is like millennial funny, or just not really like. I almost get a little like, if somebody were to walk in and see me watching that, I think I would feel a little embarrassed. And it's not necessarily because it's women's wrestling. It's more of just kind of like crude humor that doesn't hit to me. Like maybe it belongs more on SNL, but a wrestling program, I don't know that I can buy that.
My rebuttal to that is like, I think 80% of wrestling is embarrassing if like a non-wrestling fan walks in, to be honest with you. Like
That's
a
fair.
Because a lot of wrestling just comes off really contrived or phony or hokey or weird. It's a weird entertainment medium. It really is. Like, genuinely, try to explain wrestling to someone. Like, why are these people talking as if no one's watching but the camera's filming them? You know what I mean? Like, a lot of it, if you really, really break it down and like question what you're watching, a lot of it is weird and awkward and like probably embarrassing to a normal person. The question is just, what are you willing to tolerate? But beyond that, what's more to your taste? And that's why, like, because it's an entertainment medium that's as strange as wrestling is, it really is subjective. I genuinely think it's subjective. Like, even what you just said about like the women, bleeding thing, or like the glass and like the contrivance of how they are both bringing up the buckets at the same time. It's like, yeah, like your mileage for these things will vary, because you could say that feels choreographed, and then other people could say, oh, this thing feels like, a lot of it is very subjective, and you could make that point for a lot of different things. For me, the reason why that match worked was for a couple reasons. I'm kind of bored of plunder matches in general. And one of the things I hate about modern plunder matches is the long setup time in between spots. I thought with this match, it was boom, 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 boom. It was like 11 minutes. And I love that feeling of adrenaline where it's like they just get right to it. And it's a big burst of like just fire and it's over. When you have a drawn out plunder match, it's like 30 minutes, that doesn't work for me.
Yeah, I agree with that, because I kind of compared it to the Edge Mick Foley match where it was just like everything happens at once and it's 10 minutes, and I think that works for that. So I do agree with you there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, man. Like another good example, Masato Tanaka versus Mike Awesome at ECW One Night Stand 2005. That match is a masterpiece to me. And it's like 11, 12 minutes. And it's just insane spots one after the other. That's my kind of like just crack fueled like wrestling. If you're gonna go in that direction, do it like that. Like I want a car crash that just feels like it's nonstop until it's over, rather than like a slow moving car crash. It's not as fun. So I loved that aspect of the match, and that's part of why it worked for me.
Well, moving on, another hot topic in AEW right now, as we just watched AEW Dynasty this past weekend. The hostage takeover of AEW by the Death Riders is very, I don't even know exactly how to, or where to begin. I think a lot of people thought Swerve was going to win this, and a lot of people were let down. And me and Ryan talked where, as great as your undercard is, a lot of what determines how good a pay-per-view is remembered is that last taste in your mouth. What's the last thing you remember from that pay-per-view? And to have the Jon Moxley Cope match, which was an absolute stinker. I mean, nobody, I think, praised that. I didn't care for their one on Dynamite either, because I thought Spike was a little too far. And then we have the Swerve match where it's, I compared it last week to, Disney made the Marvel movies, WWE had the Bloodline run-ins, and then you've got AEW made their version, like Sony making a superhero movie. And that's kind of what this felt like. It just felt like a B-list Bloodline run-in-esque, and the Bucks came back, and that didn't really make any sense. And I don't think that in 2025 people are really clamoring to see the Bucks either, especially involved in this. So what, maybe do you know anything behind the scenes, or is Moxley just, going full Hulk Hogan? Like what is going on here?
I'll tell you this. So you guys are getting a Scoop Slam exclusive here.
Oh, okay. All right, we're locked in.
The Bucks were not going to be the original finish.
Wow.
They were not. That was a late pivot, because the original planned finish could not happen anymore. And I'm not at liberty to say why, but the original planned finish could not happen anymore. And as a result, they ended up switching to the Young Bucks. And the people involved will tell you that this was the best that they could do given the situation. Now, whether they feel that way or not, I thought the match was bad, and I thought the finish was really bad. And so like they're entitled to say that, and that's fair. But me as a viewer, what I saw was a bad match with a bad finish. So here's the deal. None of this worked for me. First of all, I don't like the regular bloodline layout for matches. I'm definitely not.
I can agree with you there.
I'm definitely not going to like a smaller scale version where the heel involved in control isn't nearly as over and the crowd is just kind of sitting on their hands for it. So this is like heatless bloodline. No, thank you. The match felt like 3 different matches glued together because they begin to grapple and then they do like ladder stuff. And then you get the bloodline stuff at the end. They stitched together 3 completely different ideas together, and then had a million run-ins. They made Hangman Page look like a fucking loser, because I'm thinking he's gonna save the day and make a big choice, and he gets his ass like whooped by the Death Riders, and then ultimately Swerve is done in by the BTE trigger, and they're on TV the next day claiming, or on the next TV this week, claiming that they did it for Hangman. So. Clearly now Swerve will be in, his path is going to diverge away from the championship, and he's going to focus on the Young Bucks. And they're going to do something where he's likely going to team with Hangman Page against them. And it's like, is this something we want to see for All In? Like Hangman Page and Swerve feel above that, if you ask me. But I
don't want to see those guys team up after what they've been through.
Yeah,
Hangman burned his house down. Come on now. Are you teaming with somebody that burns your house down?
Well, obviously not. That's what makes wrestling insane. It's like if you wanted to build an inevitable reconciliation angle, like maybe, but it just feels a bit fast to do it that way, And well, they have a couple months to plot out how they're gonna pull it off. Last week they did the TV segment where Hangman approaches Prince Nana and he's like, "Hey, I want to make it very clear I wasn't here to help Swerve." And Nana wanted to apologize on Swerve's behalf, and Hangman was like, "Hey, you don't get to have that." So obviously, this is building to a big moment where Swerve is going to apologize to Hangman, and then Hangman's heart will soften, and he will elect to help Swerve. Okay. That's obviously going to happen. And to me, it's just like, it'll get over, and they're 2 top guys. I don't know if we really needed to go in that direction this fast. It's just, that's a tough one to me.
And the Death Riders as a whole too, I feel like Swerve was somebody that people could get behind, and this isn't necessarily the case all the time, but the company as a whole is most of the time only as hot as the top act is. Look at WWF in '96 when Shawn was on top. People didn't really care about Shawn that much at the time. He kind of felt, it was in between face and heel, and people didn't really know, should I cheer him, should I boo him? And Sid gets a monster reaction. But I feel like because of Moxley, whoever is up against him gets this huge reaction, because it's not I'm cheering for this guy because I love this guy. It's, please, for the love of God, get this belt off Moxley and the Death Riders.
Yeah,
what sense does it make to have your world title in a briefcase since October?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just don't understand that model. The unfortunate thing is AEW thinks that the online fans are just a vocal minority, and they will tell you that their internal data says that this is working. That it's over and that it's working and that it's a good kind of heat. That's what they believe. And obviously, I personally vehemently disagree with that. I think this angle has been a big misfire pretty much from the beginning. And now, like, at least at the very beginning when it started, I thought that like it was a bad storyline, but at least like Mox's pay-per-view performances were good. Like the match with Bryan Danielson, that retired Danielson, was great, I thought. And I thought Mox versus Orange Cassidy at Full Gear was really good. But now we've like jumped the shark completely, and not only are the segments bad and the storyline is just illogical, now the pay-per-view matches are like devolving into parody. So I'm obviously not a Death Riders guy. I'm not into this at all. And the other problem is I don't believe in any of these challenges. If Swerve Strickland's not going to beat him, then who is going to beat him? And how am I supposed to buy into anybody challenging before Darby Allin? It's the same problem Roman Reigns ran into when people would challenge him and it wasn't Cody Rhodes. It's like, until Cody gets his rematch, how am I supposed to buy LA Knight as a challenger, for example? So that's kind of where I'm at with the Death Riders.
Yeah, I do agree, and that also ties into what I wanted to ask next, which is, what is your thought for the main event of All In? Maybe what you would want to see or what you think they're going to pivot to. I know you just talked about Darby and Jon Moxley, and then Ryan, also to you as well, who do you think is going to be the main event of All In, or who would you like to see?
Well, I can see a Ospreay versus Moxley main event for All In, but I don't know if Ospreay takes the title off Moxley at that point, because like you just said, Ibou. I mean, it feels like they were building to a Darby Moxley thing, and he's climbing Mount Everest right now. So I don't know if we'll ever see the end of this Death Rider storyline.
People really think Ospreay is going to win the Owen and beat John. And is that possible? Certainly. I don't buy it, though. I have the feeling that they're going to wait for Darby to come back, and Darby's going to beat him around maybe Wrestle Dream. That's my personal opinion and my belief.
So you think they're doing like a 97 Sting Hogan type angle? Where they're just going to hold stuff off until Darby's available?
Heat until the Sting figure saves the day. Yeah.
If he can come back, I don't know.
Yeah, right. God willing, hopefully he is. And to me, I think what they're going to do. I think Jon Moxley and Will Ospreay will have a match that won't main event the show. I think Moxley beats Ospreay, and I think in the main event of the show, I think they're going to do Omega and Okada. I think the first Omega match in the United States main event's Dallas. That's what I think. That's what I think they're hoping to do. That's my big prediction.
Can you see a Mercedes and Athena main event?
I mean, I would love for their program to get hot enough to warrant the main event, and I've been excited to see that match. Their first one is going to be this week on Dynamite. I'd love to see the main event the show. Do I buy that they're going to? No, I don't. I don't think so. It'd be really cool though.
Well, let me ask you this, and I personally was not. I got back into wrestling at large maybe 2021-ish. I was big AEW that time. Then I got back into WWE as well, and they started getting hot. I, for one, was not a huge Kenny fan when I first came in. I thought his world title run at first was amazing. After that, I was not the biggest fan. He kind of got mixed up with the Bucks. I didn't care for that. Admittedly, I am a big Punk fan, so that kind of hurt him for a while. But, then he, as a person on his Twitch streams and everything, it was not his issue. And you can only discredit somebody so much for what happens backstage. I have recently been a lot more interested in him because he's a single star again. But Okada, to me, is somebody that I did not see the New Japan run. I am not personally somebody who watches New Japan or Stardom or anything like that. But Okada in AEW, I have not gotten the hype. I think he's been largely uninteresting outside of just, calling somebody, we all know the phrase, but, is that something you are really clamoring to see in 2025? Okada and Omega again?
Yes. So here's the thing. I think Okada in AEW has been awful. But with that said, it is a special thing when these two lock up. I don't know. Have you seen their previous matches?
Admittedly, I have only seen the first one.
Yeah, and that was a long time ago. I mean, I don't know. Okada in 2025, is he that same guy?
So here's the funny thing about it. He's the type of wrestler that can be that guy on a specific night. The weird thing about Okada is this. He's always been a big match wrestler. And I'm not even like the biggest fan of Okada, like generally speaking, but he's somebody that on the big stage in a big moment is phenomenal. And that's where I agree with the consensus on him. So when he's on a big stage facing a Hiroshi Tanahashi or Kenny Omega, he's terrific. And the Omega Okada matches are excellent. And it is a fair question to say, can he pull that off in 2025? And my answer to you is yes, because of this. He had a match at what was the name of the show? World's End. At World's End, he faced Will Ospreay, and it was the final of the Continental Classic. And that match was incredible. And it felt like for one night only, you were given a glimpse of the man that AEW paid for, the man that they thought they were getting, the man that got all the hype. That was the guy that was the Rainmaker. And by and large, that's not the person that shows up on weekly television, and that's not the guy you normally get. And some of that is creative. Some of that is clearly Okada has no interest in doing that. He clearly went to America, at least on some level, to take it easy and just make the American dollar. And look, man, kudos to him. Good for you. He's 36 years old. He's been killing himself for years. You know, you want to make money and just do your thing. Go for it, right? But creative hasn't really gotten much interesting out of the guy. And they still have never fully nailed how to present him as a weekly TV character, which is why it hasn't worked on weekly television, and he often disappears for long stretches of time. But with that said, again, the value in Okada doesn't show in a TV tag or like a short match. When Okada can work at his pace, go 30 minutes with a great wrestler on a big stage, that's when you see the guy that like people talk about. And I saw enough in the Ospreay match, which I thought was incredible, to know that, yeah, when he tangos 1v1 against Kenny Omega in the stadium, it's going to be great. And Kenny Omega is a smart wrestler. He's a guy who knows his limitations, his body. He knows how to have a great match, how to structure a great match. And I have no doubt in my mind that when they go face-to-face at All In, it's going to be excellent. Will it be what those first three matches were? Maybe not. But I look at this match as something akin to what Ricky Steamboat and Ric Flair did at Spring Stampede in 1994. They had their big legendary series in 1989, Chi-Town Rumble, Clash of Champions, Wrestle War, and then they rediscovered the chemistry 5 years later in WCW 94 and were able to roll back the clock. And I think something similar happens here, where Okada Omega, two guys who know how to work each other, are going to turn the clock back, so to speak, and have a great match at all. And I honestly think they're going to. The question is not about if the match is going to be good, because I think I'd bet my life savings it's a great match. That's not the question. The question is, will AEW tell the right story to get people invested in it in 2025? And that's something I do worry about, because they struggle with Okada on TV when it comes to their creative. So that's what I worry about. And will this thing still feel hot at that point? Because when Kenny Omega came back when he came back at World's End, it was a super exciting thing. He came back, he showed up after the match, went face-to-face with Okada, and it was like, holy f***, they're going to do it again, right? How do you bottle that momentum and sustain it come July? That's a question for creative. But the match itself, I have no doubts in my mind that match will be fantastic.
And I do think that sometimes AEW is a little... me personally, I am more in the story than the matches. And I thought 2021 AEW, 2022 AEW told great stories that I could get behind. And I mean, I know that this is probably not a great thing for me to say, but not seeing the second and third Okada match, I do kind of want something to pull me into that match. I do want a good story. And I think that's why Okada has not been interesting as much to me, because I didn't see New Japan. I want you to tell me why you're important now. I want you to make me care about you now, because I don't really care about what you've done in the past just because I didn't see it. You know what I mean? No, and I do feel like I was going to say, they definitely need to lean into that.
No, that's totally fair, because it's like, here's the thing. It's fine if sometimes they do, like, not always, because I do think they do a decent job of kind of like telling you who these people are, but like a lot of times, to your point, if you don't have that context, you're not going to have the reaction that other people have when they go, oh my God, it's this guy, like I seen him do this and that, like holy shit, he's doing it today. Like for other people, it's like, okay, I've heard about him, why should I care now? You know what I mean? And it's like they have to do the job of like communicating to you, the guy who has not seen him, why he is such a big deal, you know? And with him specifically, especially, I don't think it has translated. I think if your only exposure to Okada is AEW, I think the logical reaction for most people is like, what's the big deal? You know? And so, to your point, I think that's super fair. Like with me, I know why he gets the hype, for example, right? And I'm not even like a huge Okada guy, but I have seen his work, and I know who he is, and I know why he's heralded as the great wrestler that he's seen as. But it's your job as a promotion to not just hope people just do the homework or just know. Like it's your job to communicate like what makes these people special. So again, it's going to be down to now making people care going into All In, and so they're going to have to do something to kind of kickstart that.
Well, speaking of stories that AEW is going with right now, a big one that I have been interested in, and it's something that I genuinely turn on the show to figure out, the next move, is the MJF Hurt Business angle that they're running so far.
Yeah.
I think the Hurt Business, and we talked about this last week, has been a home run hire. Probably one of the best they've ever made. They're over. Their song is over. They feel different than everybody else. I think MVP, when it's all said and done, maybe a top 5 hire ever in AEW. But
He's fantastic, yeah.
For the long term MJF Hurt Business, what do you see the trajectory being, or maybe the end goal? Because do we get a super group? Because I thought maybe they were going to lead into like the 2-man power trip. And I know me and Ryan kind of wanted to see that, where Shelton got maybe the TNT title and Bobby got the world title while having the tag titles at the same time. Or is MJF going to be kind of the lead guy, win the world title? They got the tag titles. What do you see going forward?
It's tough. I think on some level they're in the tag division because Tony knows if they're not in that division, he would have to immediately push Shelton Benjamin as a singles wrestler. And I think that he already has a lot of mouths to feed in the singles division, and that's why they're doing tag stuff. But thankfully, Bobby and Shelton have this kind of Road Warriors appeal where they just go out there and kick the crap out of dudes, and the crowds get super into it. So I'm really into the act, right? And I think they're great TV. They look like money. MVP is a tremendous talker. And so their AEW run so far has been a big home run. Max being involved with them works in the sense that Max is another guy who has a similar wrestling philosophy. He's all about, entertaining people and cutting promos and all that kind of stuff and doing weekly wrestling TV storytelling the way that MVP would do, or Bobby, right? And so they're compatible in that sense. And I think it's been fun. It's been fun to watch them interact. Right, I've had a good time. I think the most interesting thing about it is I have no idea where this is going. I have no clue what it's building up to, genuinely. And yet, I'm having fun in the moment just watching it play out. And like ideally, that's how like most wrestling should be consumed. But usually, when you watch wrestling, it's pretty easy to tell what direction that they're leaning you towards. Like when you watch a guy, interact with another guy, like, oh, so they're gonna fight at this show. But with MJF and the Hurt Syndicate, I don't know what the end game of this thing is going to be. Are they doing Max and Bobby? Like maybe is Max going to get a partner? Is he going to join the group and then turn on them? Like is he going to have his own counter group, right? And so there's a lot of different directions they could go in. And truthfully, I think most of them are pretty interesting ones. And the appeal to me is just watching MJF riff with the contrasting characters that Bobby Lashley and MVP offer him.
Yeah, I agree. Ryan, is there anything maybe you would like to see out of this angle, or where you think the end of it leads?
Yeah, I'm one that says that Bobby is kind of being wasted in the tag division, but I can see that the main event scene is kind of loaded right now, and a lot of mouths to feed. So maybe you can build to a Bobby MJF match at All In. I would assume because it kind of felt like MJF was going to join, but now it's not looking like Bobby is down for that. So I don't know. It is a lot of directions they can go in.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I'm leaning towards Max tries to infiltrate, and maybe he does briefly for a period, But generally speaking, I think he's going to form his own group to fight these guys. That's
no, another one? Come on now.
Yeah, they've been saying the word Pinnacle a lot on TV.
Okay, all right. Well, who do you put in that group though?
Maybe it's a Pinnacle reunion. Maybe they actually do him in FTR. Even though I know Max and Dax don't click the best, but maybe that's something they look into doing. We'll see.
Oh, is there heat there between those two?
I feel like they approach wrestling differently, and I could see that not being the most compatible thing in terms of weekly creative collaboration.
I can see that. Max is definitely more of a promo guy, and Dax has a gret promo, but they lean towards the wrestling, and I thought their turn was great at.
It was fantastic.
They needed that sorely. They needed that because they had such a great 2023. 2024 was very
forgettable.
lackluster.
Very forgettable.
Yeah, exactly. So I could see that. Is there anybody? Maybe either of you guys see that maybe hasn't been with MJF, young guys, perhaps even a Big Bill, since we got that big thing with Jericho this past week.
Where's Wardlow? Is he coming back? Maybe we can tie something in with that. They got history.
I have absolutely no idea. I really don't. But
That's a strange situation.
It is very odd. People just disappear, man. And now wrestling in both companies, there's no transparency with injuries anymore. I feel like before we would know the specific injury someone was out with. Now we don't get transparency. Kairi Sane just revealed, I think yesterday, that she broke her thumb, and it's like we knew that she hurt her hand, it's kind of, but we didn't know for sure. You know what I mean? Now there's no transparency for injuries, so people disappear, and it's like, are you hurt? Do you have heat with the office? Is there an issue? Did you request a release? You never get told these things anymore. So he's gone, and it's kind of weird, and I'm not sure what's going to happen with that.
Which is crazy because we were there at Revolution 2022, and Ryan, I don't think it's wrong to say that he got the biggest reaction that night.
You would think Goldberg came out massive,
and it's just kind of crazy to see where that's gone. So next and final on this special episode, we've got WrestleMania 42 or 41 this weekend. Boy, 42 is coming up soon. But Ibou, I'd like to get your predictions, and we can kind of ping pong between you and Ryan. Starting with WrestleMania Saturday, the first match, the War Raiders, Eric and Ivar versus the New Day, Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods for the World Tag Team Championships.
I think this match only exists on the card to get New Day on the card. I think they win the tag belts, and I think this is the WWE just going, all right, look, man, we got to get the New Day on. We did the big turn, so we'll finish it off here with them winning the belts. So that's my prediction on that match.
Yeah, you got to justify the heel turn. Give them something. I got New Day too.
Yep.
I agree with you there. Next up, we've got Rey Mysterio versus El Grande Americano. Definitely not Chad Gable.
So you know what? I'm going to zag where most people would probably zig. I think because this isn't Max versus Mask, I think they're going to keep this going a little bit longer, and I think Rey's going to lose to Chad Gable. You would think Mania undercard match, they're going to have a fun little back and forth match. Rey beats the evil Gringo. But I actually think Chad beats him here, and we continue this for a little bit longer.
Yeah, Chad's due a win. I don't think has he ever won on PLE, a singles match?
No, probably not.
Okay, so yeah, I'll go with Chad or El Grande Americano. I'll go with him.
Yeah, I don't know why you guys are talking about Chad Gable, man. Next up, we've got Jade Cargill versus Naomi.
Jade probably goes over, but I'll tell you what, I think Naomi has been the better half of this program, pretty easily.
I saw a crazy stat the other day that she managed to be on the 1000th episode of Raw, SmackDown, and Impact. That's crazy.
That's insane.
So yeah, she is definitely a great wrestler. Personally, I also take Jade here just because I think she kind of needs it more than Naomi does. What about you, Ryan?
Yeah, Naomi's been around for a while. I think time is right to put Jade over.
This is a very interesting matchup for me next. For the United States Championship, LA Knight versus Jacob Fatu.
Oof. Pick him.
I would love Jacob to win. I think he's been fantastic on TV and he's rising. I think there's a non-zero chance that he gets screwed by Solo Sikoa in this match.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that.
Yeah, and the next PLE coming up after Mania is Backlash. I mean, what a better name.
I think that happens, or he wins the belt and then he kicks Solo out of the bloodline on the SmackDown after. One of those spots.
I may prefer that actually, because then I think Jacob is better as a heel. I think he's captivating enough that the fans can buy him as a babyface. But I could see then Solo maybe going with Jimmy as a tag team, while Jay focuses on his singles run.
I don't hate that. I think here's the things. Jacob Fatu could be a babyface, but the thing is, the company right now they're deficient in main event heels, so they kind of need him at least to be among the people filling that role for the time being.
Yeah, Ryan, who you got? LA Knight or Jacob Fatu?
I'll go LA Knight.
Next up, we've got for the WWE Women's Championship. This is an interesting topic that we didn't even get to.
Oh, man.
Tiffany Stratton versus Charlotte Flair.
What I'll say on this now is, I think Charlotte Flair is winning the big one here.
Yeah, me too.
I think she's beating Tiffany.
Do you, Ibou, obviously you've got your ear to the ground a little bit more than we do here. Do you think this match goes off without a hitch come WrestleMania?
Come on now. You think they're going to shoot on each other at Mania?
I think it'll be physical and intense and have a couple really stiff shots. So it'll teeter without going over the line.
Yeah, I can see that 100%.
Yeah.
For another polarizing matchup here for the World Heavyweight Championship, Gunther versus Jey Uso.
Oh, Jey Uso's winning the belt here.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. Jey Uso.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, we talked about the vocal minority of the IWC. I think the IWC does not want Gunther to lose this, but I think Jey is 100%. And I think most people know that's coming. This one is, I wouldn't put money on it. Roman Reigns versus CM Punk versus Seth Rollins in the main event of night 1.
I think Seth wins.
I think we need a big babyface send-off of one of the nights. So I think CM Punk.
I could see Punk winning. I could see them doing a happy ending too.
Yeah, you can't have two heels.
True.
In the show both nights. I don't think they've ever done that.
That's a good point. That's actually.
Well, then you also you got double baby faces. Does Roman win? Does Punk win? I mean, I think I could see Punk more than Roman.
I think the crowd would be a lot happier if Punk won than Roman at this point.
I mean, golly, this is his 10th or 11th main event?
They claimed 12, didn't they? But I don't think that was right.
I saw that headline. But for night 2 of WrestleMania, Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez versus Bayley and Lyra Valkyria.
I think Liv and Raquel retain.
Yeah, Liv Raquel.
Yeah, I think you talked about it earlier, kind of haphazardly thrown together. I think Liv and Raquel win. Now, this isn't necessarily on the card yet, but Randy slots in one of these nights somewhere. I think it's going to be night 2 because there's 7 on night 1, 6 on night 2 at the moment. I'm assuming it's Randy versus Solo. So who do you guys have in that?
I don't know who Randy's going to work. I'm hoping Solo is a red herring. Regardless, I think he's going over at WrestleMania.
You don't see a return in Aleister Black.
That'd be interesting.
I wouldn't hate that.
I mean, that'd be a Mania-worthy surprise, so I'd like to see it. But I don't know who Randy's facing, honestly. I hope it's not Solo, but it could be Solo. I'm of the belief that he's going over, though.
Well, following that, we've got AJ Styles versus Logan Paul.
I'm hoping AJ wins because I think that they could just do more with him in general, and he could be a real big asset for the guys. So I'm hoping AJ goes over. There's a pretty strong chance he's not, but he's the one I'm rooting for.
Does AJ have the weirdest WrestleMania opponents?
It's insane. His WrestleMania catalog makes no sense.
I got Logan.
I also think they go with Logan. While I love AJ and I think that I would prefer him winning, I think just the sheer magnitude of Logan Paul, WWE likes that. I think they're gonna give him the win here.
No, you're probably right. I'm just hoping AJ wins, but I do think he's probably going under there. I think Logan wins the match.
For the WWE Intercontinental Championship Fatal 4-Way match, Braun Breaker versus Penta versus Finn Balor versus Dominic Mysterio.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say Penta goes over. But Vegas thinks Dom is winning. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Vegas thinks Dom is winning, and if Dom goes over, then we know the finish. It's going to be Braun giving Finn Balor a big-time spear, and then Penta's probably going to do something to neutralize Braun, maybe a Penta driver. Dom probably shoves Penta out the way, and then he sneaks and gets the pin on Finn Balor.
Yeah, I do not doubt that Finn Balor is the one that gets pinned out of the three in this match.
Exactly. You already know it.
Ryan?
Yeah, I'm going with Vegas. I got Dirty Dom.
I think I'm also going with Dom here. I feel like the moment's right. I feel like people want him. But obviously, if Penta wins, I would not be upset with that either. The Sin City Street Fight, Damian Priest versus Drew McIntyre.
I think Drew badly needs a win on a big stage, and I think he gets it here against Damian Priest.
Yeah, agree. We're going a little heel heavy on this night. Yeah, I think Drew wins again.
Agreed. Triple threat for the Women's World Championship, Io Sky versus Bianca Belair versus Rhea Ripley.
I think Bianca wins the championship.
Wow. Okay. I'm going Io.
I'm also going Io just because of how recent
she's been treated like an afterthought the whole build-up. So I mean, they gotta have to go Io, don't you?
I think the story calls for Io to win the match because Rhea and Bianca are too focused on each other. But I also know that Bianca has a Mania streak, and so I feel like they might want to actually use this year to make it a thing.
Oh, okay. I can see the angle there, and I'm not upset if Bianca wins. I think the only person I don't want to win this is Rhea. God love her, but
I agree. I don't even hate Rhea really, but she shouldn't win this match.
Yeah. And the be-all, end-all main event of WrestleMania Night 2 for the undisputed WWE Championship, Cody Rhodes versus John Cena.
I think Cena wins.
Yeah, Cena wins and maybe a final boss appearance too.
I think it has to be Cena, right? I mean, it kind of invalidates his whole heel turn. Where does he go after this? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you kind of have to do it, otherwise you're squandering like this whole storyline.
Yeah. Well, that's all we got for today. Once again, Ibou, thank you for coming on. Is there anything you would like to plug right before we get out of here?
Just follow me at Backup Hangman on Twitter if you don't already. And if it so interests you, folks, I co-run a Discord called Self-Made. And you can find the link to the Discord on Twitter. Go at SelfMadePW, and there will be a link in the bio to our Patreon. And if you pay $5, you'll get access to all our archived podcasting content and watch-along content. And you'll be able to get granted access into our Discord where we do all kinds of cool, fun stuff. Like wrestling match recommendation watch-alongs, sports watch-alongs. We have game nights, video game nights, aux battles, all kinds of cool stuff. So you can catch me in the Self-Made Discord, and you can catch me on Twitter at @BackupHangman.
Hey, speaking of sports, we got the NBA playoffs coming up. You think your Knicks gonna go very far? I hope they don't find my Lakers in the finals.
I think they lose in round 2 to the Celtics, unfortunately. This team lacks toughness. They don't take the fight to anybody. And when people stand over them or bump them or try to get in issues with them, this is a Knicks team that was rugged and nasty and hard for the last few years. That was the culture we built, a defensive, tough guy culture. And this year, this team does not have that level of heart or fight. But they're very talented. They're not really well coached this year for whatever reason. So I think it might be Tom Thibodeau's last season. I think we beat Detroit in about 5 games, and I think the Celtics kind of kick in round 2, unfortunately. I'd love to believe, and I'd love to be given. I'd love to think otherwise, but I think we get dispatched up in the second round.
Yeah, I personally don't have them going all the way, but I do. I like the Knicks out of the East competitors. Definitely not a Celtics fan myself. But once again, Ibou. Oh, say that one more time.
No, I said I hate Boston.
Oh, yeah, agreed.
Oh, we all, yeah.
But once again, Ibou, thank you for coming on. If you guys enjoyed this, let us know. All of our socials will be in the link in the description. So, if you guys like this kind of thing, definitely open to running it back again. We got WrestleMania this weekend. We're going to be live on TikTok. So if you're not following us there, make sure you tap in. We appreciate you guys for listening. Take care of yourself and have a good one.